Everybody, welcome to Know with Cash. It's your host, Cash Money Morgan. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. The vibes are good, the weather's great, and I'm here with an amazing guest. Everyone, please give it up for Brittany Perry. Woo! Brittany, how are you feeling this morning?
I am feeling great. It's a beautiful day in the Ozarks, and I am I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks so much for being here. You know, Brittany, you had a nice little workout this morning, and she's absolutely slaying in her fit. Let's give it up for Brittany. A vibe. So Brittany and I actually met a few weeks ago at a manufacturing conference, and I remember being like, should I go to this booth? My coworker wanted like a donut, and then we just hit it off, I think.
Absolutely, like a house on fire. Absolutely.
Great personality, and she just kind of started telling me her story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to get you on the podcast. Like, you're amazing. So Brittany, before we get into everything, can you just go ahead and like tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I am an attorney at Evans Dixon. I specialize in litigation. And for those of you outside of the law world, it basically means when things go to trial, you hire someone who goes to trial. And so that's kind of my role, whether it's a conflict and somebody has stolen your boat and you want to get it back.
Get your boat.
Get your boat. Believe it or not.
Well, that was ours.
Yeah. And we didn't have a written contract. Or if it involves, sometimes with employers, we represent and I represent them in disputes involving employment. But I also have a side practice that kind of came out of nowhere, but out of a need that I found in the Ozarks with women and just in general people who have survived domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault.
Wow. Guys, round of applause for Brittany. Yes, Queen, that's amazing. I mean, you're so fantastic, and that is so awesome. So to backtrack a little bit, are you from Springfield originally, or what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually a 7th-generation Ozarks girl.
Okay.
So I've been around here for a while. But yeah, I'm from Springfield, born and raised. I went to law school in Kansas City, so go Chiefs. I absolutely love Kansas City. But my home is, down here. So
yeah,
that's where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to raise my family, and also to make our community better.
That's awesome. That's huge. That's so huge. You stay in Springfield, you keep developing, and it's just growing into a beautiful, beautiful place.
Especially, yes. Exactly.
What do you have a phrase for the haters who are like, Springfield is not great, or it's the armpit of America? What do you say to that hater?
Well, I guess, everyone's opinion is speculative, but, you don't have the kind of warmness in the community that you have in other places. And it's kind of weird, but when I came back from Kansas City, I was airing up my tire. And of course, like 2 dads were like, nope, get out of the way. I'm going to air your tire up. And I just remember being like, only in the Ozarks do people stop and like demand to air your tire up.
Yeah, I will say Springfield has a gem of people. Very, very kind-hearted and very sweet. Yeah. So take that, haters on Facebook.
We may be smelly, but we'll air up your tire.
Right, right. That's awesome. So how did you know you wanted to pursue, law school?
Well, I always was really good with words, and I did debate in high school, and so that kind of culminated as how can I make this a part of my career? I know I'm good at these things, and it all kind of amounted to being an attorney. And it is a boys' game, especially down here. And often you will walk into a courtroom and be the only female, which is hopefully starting to change. But I knew that was going to be something that doesn't bother me. I played baseball with all boys. It didn't bother me. And so
absolutely, absolutely.
That's what I wanted to do. So yeah, just try to find what you're good at and make money at it.
Yeah, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. So you touched on it for a second, kind of the Harmony House and the surveillance. So what ultimately led to that happening,
So I ended up starting a program called Surveillance for Survivors. And it kind of came out of a need where victims who were being stalked or having domestic violence, they are, thrown into temporary housing oftentimes because they're not wanting to, be at home because the person obviously knows where they have resided oftentimes. And so when they're getting out of shelter or if they're temporary residents and they're terrified of that person finding out, they can get a free surveillance camera and a year subscription, but we can renew it. It's not like a set thing of that data saving. Should you need it in court for security purposes, and those are absolutely free. You can get them at Honoree House or the Domestic Violence Center in Springfield County.
That is so awesome. So funding wise, where does something like that kind of come into play?
Well, it kind of came about in a lot of different ways, but I partnered with an attorney in Springfield called, her name is Sarah Donnellan, and she primarily and solely does survivor work, and she is phenomenal. I cannot say enough good things about her. And she was having clients that were also experiencing the same issues. They were scared. They're in court and they're like, I saw him outside of my window, or I saw him outside of, he had a hatchet. And it's it's not as compelling when you say it until you show the judge, here's him at my doorstep with a hatchet, and it's much more convincing, and it actually kind of puts oftentimes a male judge into the female's perspective. And no one wants to be greeted that way. So her and I kind of got the idea to do this, and I ended up writing a grant that ended up funding a large part of it. And then we've been just doing fundraising throughout our community. So there's lots of cameras.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the podcast needs to partner with. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. We'll talk later.
If you need one, holler at your girl.
Yeah. No, that is so awesome. And just the way that you guys are probably changing so many lives is unreal.
And, I am a litigation attorney. I represent corporations and, businesses and individuals who have lots of money. And it kind of came about, this practice of survivorship and stalking, when I had a very good friend of mine went on a date. And this date didn't click, not their vibe. And so they went about their lives, and then they started getting bombarded with pretty aggressive text messages from various amounts of fake numbers. And then they ended up having their photographs posted on social media websites as well, that were not necessarily the most flattering things. This individual went to the police station and said, hey, this person's, putting notes on my friend's car, on my car, and they're scary. And, unfortunately at the time when this person came in, the department decided not to take a report. And so I had become licensed in 2017. I had my bar license for 4 days. My friend was telling me about this, and so I printed off the stalking statute, and I went down there in my little suit, 4 days being a lawyer, and I told the officer that was intaking, I said, this is what's happening. This person is terrified. Please do something about it. And they pushed back with me, and they said, well, this seems like something we don't do. And I was like, well, here's a statute, and I'm telling you this is, serious. And the detective that ended up getting assigned to their case did a phenomenal job, and ended up getting a warrant on this individual's phone. And he had done this to double digits.
Oh
people.
my gosh.
And there were even allegations and evidence that he had raped individuals as well. Now, getting those people to prosecute such an individual and going forward is challenging. So, it's been quite a while. That was in 2017, and that person still has not been fully incarcerated yet. So
That's wild.
It's, and when I tell people, when I represent them, I can tell you that whether it be the civil side or the criminal side, I've never felt or heard from a survivor that said, wow, I felt vindicated.
Yeah.
Whether it be the criminal system, it has its flaws, and the prosecutors in Greene County, they do the best they can, and they are amazing advocates, but you only can do what you can do, And in the civil side, which is what I do, I can only give them money. I can get you money. But money don't fix everything.
Right.
And you may see this person who has done horrible things to you out in public, and you were going to see them, live their, awesome lives, out in social media, and you're just going to have a stack of cash. And I hope you're okay with that, because oftentimes when we exchange that large sum of money, it's because you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And so they can't really tell their employer or, this new girlfriend or whoever they see, this is a serious thing that you need to be cautious about. But they have the money, and that's, I still think, is a win in a lot of ways.
Right, 100%. So just like a little question about that. So if someone, say they went through something really awful and they went to trial, won, signed the NDA, if they went to therapy or something like that, can they even talk about what they went through in that kind of situation?
So oftentimes when a survivor has settled out their sexual assault case, they have in those non-disclosure agreements, and the ones that I provide, they can talk to their attorney, they can talk to their healthcare provider, or their CPA, because they just got a large sum of money.
Yeah,
so
right, yeah.
Talk to those folks. But those are the only people,
wow.
typically. So, or they have the opportunity, they can be sued. And so, and what's hard too is part of survivorship is to own your story,
Yeah.
And so that's hard. So, those are things you have to kind of think about, but, money does pay for a lot of nice things. So.
It does. Yeah. Shoot. So like from the mental health side, what's your opinion on that a little bit? Because I know if something happened to me, I'd be like, justice. I want what I feel like I deserve. But also, if you want to do that work to kind of, mentally heal, like what are your kind of thoughts on, can you still heal mentally and all those things, but you can't talk to anybody about it, really?
Yeah. It's different for every single person, but there are some really amazing therapists out there. There's a new treatment, or I guess it's actually an old treatment that is being used in sexual survivorship, and it's called EDMR. Basically the therapist will actually make the individual experience and talk about in the therapy session exactly what went through and what they had to do it. And they will touch the person while they are talking about it, because for some reason when we have trauma, it goes to the front of our short-term memory. And so when we talk about it, it actually feels like we are truly reliving it. And that exercise, moves the trauma from the short-term part of your brain into the long-term part of your brain. So when you are able to, if something you smell or something that occurs, like, if your assaulter smoked cigarettes and you smell it and it brings back that, you won't be in tears at the restaurant or the bar, or, you will actually be like, okay, that's not a trauma experience. And they've used it on soldiers returning back from war. And it is it's been proven to help, but you have to make sure to do it in certain ways and get somebody who obviously specializes in that. But it's about a good 2-month wait to get into a therapist. So if you're really experiencing trauma, there's not like, there's the ER, which is you get put in a straitjacket.
Yeah.
And then there's waiting 2 months to go see your, primary care or, the therapist. There's not really an urgent care.
Yeah.
So, I do think you can get over it and, live your life healthily, but you're always going to have those moments where you're like, whoa, that happened, but you can move on and live your life. You shouldn't have it define you, but it can make you stronger.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always say too, if anyone hears anything in the background, it's because I live downtown and it's a Saturday, so be so for real.
People are getting their pancakes.
Yeah, they're getting their pancakes, they're getting a little cute walk. I'm like, it's authentic, you know what it is.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So just one more question about kind of all that area is, as a lawyer, as a woman, as, you're in a predominant male industry, when you have a civil case like that, or you have a case and it breaks your heart, and then maybe the case didn't go the way you want, but kind of like for you, how do you kind of mentally deal with that, or like separate that from going home to your family and You know, what does that look like for you?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I can only just say I have worked my tail off for you, and I have fought like a corner dog, and that's all I can do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The facts are what they are, and I can look at myself at the end of the day and say there was literally nothing I could have done differently, and I fought like harder than I know any other attorney would. And I also sometimes, and that's the hard part, is sometimes you can't be personal, but then you end up, you know, you feel your client's emotions, and you should, because, you know, that's, you are stepping in their shoes, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, you just have to know that you did the most you can.
Yeah.
And sometimes things are unfair, and, you know, you smoke a cigarette, you swear under your breath 500 times, and then you move on. But, you know I have never met a single client of mine in those situations, and they are very rare, because I will be honest, in my situations, I only take cases that I know that I can truly advocate. I'm not going to do something I know that will have no success.
Yeah.
So, you know, even if it's, you know, not $50,000, but this is as much money as this person truly has, and we've gone through every bit of their assets.
Yeah.
This is something that, you know, I would love for you to win $1 million, but rape is an intentional action, and oftentimes insurance don't cover those kinds of actions.
Yeah.
So this is what they have. So, you know, I still think of a lot of these as a win. You know, even though my friend who is still experiencing that, person who, you know, stalked them, and they still have
experiencing it.
Well, he has not been formally, you know, convicted of the crime, so he is still out there in public, living his life. And so, you know, that's been since 2017. So that's almost
how can that even be
6 years?
You know?
Yeah. They just, you know, and oftentimes you know, obviously 2020 didn't help anyone with the expeditious, you know, things, but yeah. And so, yeah, it is hard, and it's frustrating, but you can only control what you can do. So as a certified control freak.
Same. Whatever that is, I'm gonna need that medicine as well.
Yeah. There is a medicine, I think. But you know, you can only do what you can do and control what you can control. But at the end of the day, I always try to get the absolute best result, and I think almost every time I try.
Yeah.
And unwinding is the hard part, because, you know, I'm also one of those people who want to fix everything, and my husband, my family, they're like, please don't lawyer me. I'm like, okay, yeah. You want me to listen, not to fix your problem. I got it. All right. Sorry. That's hard. And it's also hard when you are literally screaming at the other side, and they're screaming back at you. And then, you know, you go home, and it's like, that energy has to go somewhere. Yeah. So, and you never want to displace it on the people you love. And it can be very frustrating. So, you know, my outlet is obviously to do it in a healthy way, and I think, you know, through exercise and doing those kinds of things to channel that, so when you can go home, you can be like, I'm a mom, you know. Yeah. This is my time. And you do get calls at crazy hours because people have serious issues that are happening, and, you know, I try to make myself available to all of my clients, and that's something that I do, and that is something that I have taken on as a responsibility. And so, you know, there are some people who turn off their phone at 5, and that's awesome. But when you do the type of work I do, you know, I have to be in communication.
Yeah.
Because I have to address things immediately. So, you know, it can be hard, but at the same time, you just have to know yourself and what you can handle.
That's great. Yeah, really. Yeah. That's awesome. And I mean, first of all, you're amazing. Aww. So if anyone has any kind of issue ever, this is the girl you want on your team, because she's going to advocate you, and she's most likely going to win. So get her on your team. But I think something you said so strong was, you know, the system isn't perfect, and obviously there's things that happen that we can't control. The fact that guy is still out there. So for you to help create something, you know, like the surveillance cameras through Harmony House, is, I feel like, well, how can I find a solution? You know, and so in that area, you're probably saving so many lives because, you know, people go missing, things happen, and then it becomes important. And so I think what you're doing is really tackling the issue from the beginning. And that's something that is so awesome.
Yeah, and I you know, it's one thing to hear it and it's another thing to see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So to kind of go in a little bit into that topic again, we touched a little bit on demographic, and I think you were saying that things are so different, but what does a survivor typically that you've met or seen, you know, analytics from, what does that usually look like?
Well, it can range, obviously, in age, and there are kind of a range of stalking that does occur. So you have, obviously, the most prominent version of stalking, and the most that we see are relationships, people who've had an intimate relationship, often boyfriend or girlfriend or husband and wife, and that is the most frequent one that happens. And obviously subsequent to the breakup or subsequent to a divorce or dissolution, the partner ends up becoming the stalking party. I will say the majority of those are women, oftentimes in their mid to late 20s, and then often sometimes into their mid 30s. But you have to think it's kind of when people are dating and more fluid. But I will say I have had a stalking situation involving, it was a female on female, and that was one of the worst stalking cases I've ever had. And it was the ex-girlfriend was mad at this new girlfriend, and man, oh man, it was probably one of the worst ones. You also see demographics in that situation kind of that I mentioned are the date that just didn't work out.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's
has me so scared, girl. Oh, it's just a blind date. It's no big deal.
It didn't really work out that great. And sometimes those temporary, you know, get to know people, it's that that happens too. And so those can also be a little bit more difficult because you don't know that person, and so you can't really anticipate their next move. Unlike a married couple, like, he knows that I go to, you know, this place, so he's going to sit out there. But the person that may not know you may not be able to anticipate their next move because you don't know them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it kind of causes for concern. And it was weird because when my friend was going through that, the way we ended up finding out it was this person, because we had no idea at first. The person had used a word continuously through all the various different phone numbers, and we searched, you know, in the text message, we looked up that word, and all of the crazy numbers showed up along with that one person that they had gone on the date with.
Wow.
And that is how we ended up finding out it was that person, because of language.
Wow.
So being good at words is important.
Oh my gosh, women can find anything.
Yes.
You try to hide something from your girl, psych.
There's
no it's cracking the code. Wow, that gave me chills, low-key. That's wild.
And then the last form of stalking that can happen actually amongst obviously younger folks, and it can also happen amongst the gay community as well. And I don't know necessarily the analytics behind that, but sometimes there's, you know, more dating involved in those places and those types of folks, the younger, you know, and trying to find your partner. And then the last one that we see, which can oftentimes be the most dangerous, and sometimes it's typically for the victim or the survivor, it can be the scariest. And those are people who we don't know who they are. We don't know why they have chosen us. We have never really had a connection with them. They have found my social media, or they have found an article about me, and now they won't leave me alone.
Wow.
And so those are also the hardest, because those people live in a fantasy world. And so they have fantasized in a way that have, you know, and something too about stalking, that the person who is stalking gets kind of off to the contact.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes folks, in order to get them to stop, they have to file a restraining order, or what we call in the state of Missouri a protective order. And the inaction of litigation means they get to see that person. in the courtroom. So sometimes it's they that doing that may make that enjoyable for them because then they can take tabs on it, you know.
So sick.
It's a mental health issue, obviously, and we don't necessarily know why it happens, but we know that the people who do it, and when they talk about it later, they don't really know how it got to that point, but it's kind of in that realm of obsessive compulsive disorder where they enjoy the hunt, or they enjoy the thing, or they are using their anger as a way to continue the behavior. They're so mad that they want to make sure that you aren't happy, and so it can be kind of a weird situation, but when you're in it, it really sucks.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I've never had this happen to me, but I have had enough clients where it really affects their quality of life.
Oh my gosh, I believe it. You're constantly in fear.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you mentioned that a lot of times it's casual dating or relationships based on all different kind of communities and typically like younger. So obviously who we date is extremely important.
Yes.
Do you have any like red flags or like little things to look for, whether you're in that talking stage or you're on an app or you're going on a date, you know?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you kind of things that if you start to, go with your gut. I had a friend I always ask my friends like what they learned on their birthday. What'd you learn this year, you know?
I do the same thing.
What'd you learn? I want to know.
You're 25 now. What's going through your mind? I'm just
So, and she said to go with her gut. That was the thing she learned that year. And I can't emphasize with you, if you feel like something is weird or, go with your gut, you know what I mean? Because it probably is.
Yeah.
And things to know if you feel like you're getting stalked or that person is showing up at locations where you're at, there unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, there are devices and things that people use in order to monitor people. And one of those things are GPS tracker devices. You can buy them as affordably as $40, and they are very, very small and they are magnetic.
Wow.
And so they can place on cars, and the battery life on them can be up to a few months, and they can track you on their phone quite easily. And I didn't know about these, or I did, but I thought they were like Apple tags.
Right, Apple AirTags, yeah.
And we had an attorney represent someone who advised that they knew that the person that they were stalking hadn't gone to see their attorney. And the attorney inquired about it, like, how do you know that they haven't gone to their attorney? And the person advised that it was because they had placed a device on their vehicle and were monitoring that person. And obviously we found out, because I was curious about it, I was like, well, where did they put it? How much was it?
Yeah.
And so through that, from actually representing someone who was a stalker, we were able to find out that oftentimes these individuals, or at least in that scenario, place things on the outside of the vehicle, so behind the driver, the plate. That's a good place because you don't really unscrew your plate very often.
Wow.
And then I have had people where the person continues to show up, and so they will go to a car place, like a service center, and ask them to do a run through. And sometimes they will charge, and most of the times they don't. But that is worth every cent. And if you do find, and tell them if you find something, don't touch it. We need to take pictures of it.
Wow. Yeah. That's good.
And the other ways people can do this, and this is oftentimes in a marital situation or a boyfriend and girlfriend situation, but there are devices or applications that you can place on a cellular device. They're, I guess, like advertised as, for your parents, we want to see all the apps that their kids are looking at. And they kind of almost mirror the phone's activity to what you're looking at. So they can look at the app and they can in real time or in a recorded version see what you have been up to. So if you had messaged your friend on social media, hey, I'm going to this bar, they would be able to preview that on that security surveillance application.
So how does that, do I have to have that app for that to happen?
So oftentimes, yes. So
oh my gosh.
The party will get access to the survivor's phone and download that app. and it's not necessarily, a lot of those do not show the application on the device. Ways you can find out if you have that is by your data usage being off the roof, because that application is sending it to the other party. So if you're going through data like a mad woman, it's probably you need to get a new phone. And you know, sometimes in an abundance of caution, that's what we do. You get a new phone.
Yeah.
I even had a survivor get a new car.
Yeah.
They were just so scared. They were like, I can't.
Yeah.
So, you know, and obviously if they don't know what you're driving and they don't know, you know, your phone and you have these concerns, they just shed. They got a new life. And that's what, unfortunately, when we talk about, that's a huge inconvenience. You got a job, you got kids, you know, getting a car is like a 4-month ordeal. You know,
Right, yeah.
But, you know, people are, you know, so nervous. And unfortunately, you know, sometimes when we look at this in the realm of criminality, you know, stalking is kind of like a misdemeanor in the realm of things, and it can be quite severe, especially when somebody really gets a hold of you.
Yes, 100%. So a little question, just because obviously, you know, TikTok is huge and social media, and you know, what is privacy anymore? So, you know, you've given some really great tips on protecting yourselves and signs to look for that I really had no idea, or a lot of people probably don't. So when it comes to social media and things like that, do you have any tips as well, or like things you've really noticed?
Well, you know, for me and my own, because I, for any better purposes, I piss a lot of people off.
Let's give a yeah.
So, you know, for me, you know, I always am worried about protecting myself, because, you know, there are been cases where the defendant comes and finds the attorney, you know. So I obviously have surveillance at my home. And as far as, you know, and I encourage everyone to do that, just in case. You never know.
Yeah.
And to have it is better to not. And even though mine is primarily to let my cat back in and out of my home 1,000
We love it. We love it.
times a day. And if I don't do it quickly enough, my husband messages me and says, "Please let Tuna in." And I'm like, he looks hungry.
You named the cat Tuna.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Tuna's fine, Robert. He can wait until I'm done with my call. God. So, you know.
That's awesome.
But, you know, another, like, so social media is weird, because, like, and it obviously determines what kind of social media you have. Like, Facebook is often used for a commercial purpose. You know, we all use it as a way to do things. Mine is not very personal. It's just pretty much a commercial.
Like a marketing tool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you have things that are not for marketing purposes, that are close friends, you can be a little bit more expansive with that in the information you share. But, you know, if you have a pretty open profile and you don't really check the folks that you add on to, you know, the information you provide, you know, it's hard. You have to make sure that you're monitoring that. When I was pregnant, I was absolutely terrified to post that on my Facebook, because I was afraid someone would harm my child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that sounds weird, but that's the world I live in, right? And so I didn't post about it until, like, I was about to have that baby.
Yeah. She pulled that Kylie Jenner and released the baby information the day he was born.
Exactly. Yes. It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, everyone who's seen me, I'm very large. But, but it was like around 8 months or 7 months. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was right there. So, and I also was concerned. I was like, do I post a photo of my child on social media? I'm really concerned. And I have friends who are prosecutors and federal prosecutors who got off social media because they prosecute drug lords, and that's a way they can harm them. And I have some that, you know, choose to post. You know, I ended up posting a picture of my kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is what it is. But I don't post pictures of the outside of my home.
Yeah.
I, you know, don't post photos of my vehicle, just because, you know, if somebody really wanted to track you, you want to make sure that they have the limited information. Now, like on Instagram, you know, I have a very small following. It's just friends and family.
Yeah.
I may post photos of these, you know, things like that.
Right.
But, you know, you just have, if you're not going to be careful with who you select and do a thorough case net and background check on these folks, or you don't personally know them very, very well, you know, monitor it. And I always feel like Facebook's the most expansive, or Instagram, and then like your Snapchat or your other things, maybe a little bit more. You can with, but you know, just remember, if you were wanting to, like we talked about, we can find out anything about anyone on social media, and you know, your car, you know, things like that, where you live. Oh yeah, that apartment looks really familiar.
Yeah.
You know, we've all seen don't mess with cats, or you know. Yeah.
And especially with TikTok too. I mean, your whole goal is to blow up and be viral. And so if you're gonna have like thousands of people see a video that you're gonna post, I mean, really proceed with caution, I think.
Yeah, and if you're gonna do that and you're gonna post what your house is or where it is, just know that there may be people who want to come find you, or that, you know, you may upset. And so having those, you know, precautions like surveillance system and things like that can really help, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so good. So just a little different question. So obviously you've mentioned, you know, different cases with scary people.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't even like watch certain TV shows because I'm afraid of everything. Like Criminal Minds, no, I can't even drive on a back road anymore thinking like I'm gonna die. And so when you have, you know, different cases and clients and you see things, does that affect your trust on people? Or like, does it ever make you just kind of have, not like a bad taste, but you're like, okay, there's a lot less good in the world than there is bad. Like, how do you navigate that?
Well, it definitely makes me assess risk differently, right? I know that I won't do certain behaviors because I've seen the outcome of some behaviors. And so, you know, I don't necessarily think it's a bad world, but there are certain things that I won't do because I know that there's an associated risk possibly with that. You know, so it is one of those things. And the other thing too, which I unfortunately have kind of like a privilege, right? It's, and my privilege is I'm a scary, mean lawyer. No one's going to mess with me. And if they do, God, I hope that they grab their ankles, man, because it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah, they bring their whole team because
it's going to be a, you know.
She's squaring up.
So, you know, I won't, and that's a privilege, right? I know I'm smarter than you. I know that I can really do some harm if you mess with me. And so,
you're so cool.
I walk with that privilege.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't necessarily have the same, you know, and the reason why I probably have never been stalked, or, you know, because it's something that can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
It's because I'm a mean, scary person. And if they did that, God help their whole family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know.
And we'll burn their house down in the name of the law.
I'll get a court order and did it.
Yeah.
You know, but it can really, you know, and so I walk in a different shoe than the average person. But, you know, and I also understand the law. And so when people act certain ways and they do that, you know, I know that I'm going to lead you into a way that can really, you know, make me successful. So I don't really have the same, you know, things, but I do exercise caution. Like I do, you know, do you know, full surveillance and things like that. And, you know, and let them, you know, we obviously have, I don't want to say exactly what I have.
Right, yeah, you don't need to, yeah.
Know, but there's ways that I feel totally fine, you know, but not everyone has that privilege, right? They have to ask a lawyer, is this okay?
Yeah.
You know, is this, what can I do, you know? So it's a little bit different for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So to go back to the Harmony House in the surveillance situation, has there been, what does the impact look like in Springfield with that?
So we ended up writing that and starting it off on the ground a couple months ago. And so we've purchased these, we're handing them out. And so, you know, honestly for impact, we can only, you know, it's hard to put a number or make it tangible because, you know, it could be that somebody feels confident enough to go home. And that is a win. 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and so as far as, you know, evidentiary purposes for, you know, court, I can say that some of the best the impact of surveillance for survivors. And so, you know, impact can be a lot of different ways. It can feel that somebody can be confident in going home, and home is our safe space, right?
Yeah.
And so that is $1 million win for me as as far as, creating evidence, surveillance cameras create great evidence. And so, it has been helpful, and even if an individual doesn't want to pursue their case, right? Let's say they have all of this amazing evidence and they just say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. This is too traumatic for me. Like, it's not something I'm interested in doing. That's okay too, right? Because like we talked about, not every win is litigation.
Right.
Sometimes expressing that to a client is like, I am not going to pressure you to sue this person. This is what your life is going to be. You might not want, if they don't want to settle, you may have to file a lawsuit, which is public.
Yeah.
So, it's a give and take. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned to me earlier that even if someone wasn't necessarily being stalked, but they already were kind of freaked out or just had some signs, even if someone didn't have signs and they wanted those cameras, what does that look like? Is that possible?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you were having concerns about somebody who may be stalking you, or you may be experiencing domestic violence, that is something we are totally open for, and we want you to be safe in your home. And that's the whole point of prevention of domestic violence, right? They can't harm you if you don't come home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's ways to effectually decrease those numbers. And so,
Yeah. So to my listeners, if you're ever, you're someone who's experienced some of this, or you have concerns, or you can relate, definitely please check out Harmony House and the options that are here when it comes to surveillance and your safety.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Yeah. So question for Brittany. Okay. So, you're this lawyer, you're this queen, you're a mom, you're a wife. How do you do it? How do you do it?
Well, that's a funny thing, right? I obviously have help, right? I have amazing family down here, and that's one of the reasons why I returned. So my dad helps me, my partner helps me, his family helps, my aunts and uncles help. I mean, it's a whole, I was like, thank God my grandmother had so many kids.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like when that ice hit the other day, or back in early February, I was handing him off just to random family. I'm like, second cousins work.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You can't do it alone, right? And your family and your friends, they want you to be successful. So whether it be, and I had one of my best friends, I was a bridesmaid in her wedding, watch him on one day, she was available, and so it takes a village, truly. And, I'm blessed with my amazing village. I also think, hustle. You gotta hustle. It's not, as my daddy would always say, if it's easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
And so, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But, with hard things comes great things, so that's one way, is just gotta hustle. And no one wants to run like 5 miles. It sucks, right? But you gotta hustle, waking up early and, doing those things, and, it's a part of it. But, pressure makes diamonds,
I think you're so inspiring because sometimes there's that idea where it's like you get either, like the life or being a mom or a career. And I think you're a great example of someone who can thrive in their career, and have a great family and have a life. And I think that just shows that you're right. There is no I in team. Like, you need people and support around you.
Absolutely. Yes. And daycare is clutch too. God bless them. Little Robbie loves you guys.
So when did you and your husband meet?
Well, we met, it's kind of a weird situation, but my whole family's in the news industry.
Okay, cool.
My brother was working at a news station, and he's in news too, and my husband was in news, and my brother had just started, I think he was like 15 or 16, he was the youngest guy there, and he had a really rough day, because the news is in a lot of ways like the law. It's very cutthroat.
Yeah.
People are mean, and they're just, I don't know, I'm not in that industry, but I've just been told, so whatever. And so Robert actually took little ZP, my brother, to Taco Bell, and was like, it's gonna be okay, man, it'll be fine. And so my husband is 6'7". I don't know, I've only dated tall guys.
That's awesome. You've got any like friends somewhere down the line, let me know.
I had just broken up with my other boyfriend, and I was really sad and whatever, young Brittany. And my brother's like, I think this guy would be really great for you. And I was like, well,
So how old were you then?
Oh, I must have been right around 21 or 22.
Okay.
And so I ended up meeting him, and we hit it off really well. And he supported me when I was going to law school. We had a long distance relationship, and then he moved to Kansas City, and then we moved back to the Ozarks, and and he also is in the military, so he had that commitment too. But we're both very independent people, and so that kind of functions our way, and we're very much a team.
Yeah.
So, we have to do that or we'll fail. So, and thank God he's a leader in the military because he understands that. So, and he's always been a very huge supporter of my success and vice versa. So I'm very blessed in that way. And marriage is definitely not easy, I will say that. And it's a compromise, and it's really hard because as an attorney, I hate that word.
Right. Let's settle on this argument, and you're like, we can't settle. Someone has to win.
That word. It's the devil's word. So yeah, it's hard because and he has to constantly remind me I'm not just somebody who boss around. And I'm like, yeah, right. And that's probably why I respect him so much, is because I can tell him what to do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the partner I always needed, somebody to tell me what to do, because I would run over someone like that. So that's kind of how we met. My brother introduced us, and so my brother's very close with my husband, and it's kind of like a weird family introduction. It's like old school.
No, it's awesome. Honestly, it's great.
Yeah.
So would you have any advice for anyone like in relationships, or basically I feel like an issue I see a lot, even in myself sometimes, like if you're independent and you have a drive, you have a career goal, and when you're looking for that partner, like it sounds like you're an independent person who met an independent person and you have this like awesome, healthy marriage, it flows, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There are some days where I'm sure he wants to strangle me. But that's really why we have the surveillance camera.
Right. Or the evidence.
I can't really give relationship advice, but the one thing I could just say is, dating is all in the timing. You know what I mean? And you may have met amazing people, and the timing is not right.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of with dating is just in the timing. Like you both are in the same place at the same time, and that's what's hard too with the relationships, because sometimes your clocks can get out of sync. So
while you're in the relationship.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's a topic.
It can. One party gets a different career, or something drastically changes. Children, things like that. I see it all the time. But what I can say is, it's a lot of the timing, and then obviously communicating. Because I was never shy with Robert about what I wanted to do. Like, I'm gonna be a lawyer if you want to do that. And at one point he said, no, I'm gonna be in Springfield, we're gonna be in Kansas City, how is that gonna work? And and we eventually came up with, we'll just do long distance, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, and then it did. And so it's a haul, it's hard, but with anything, a hustle.
Yeah.
So, I guess the hard part with this is, it's kind of like a job, right? It's all in the timing. You want to have the right fit, and especially if you're gonna lock that in and get married, make sure that it's like the right fit, right? Because living in a life that you're absolutely miserable in is, and I see this too with my own clients that have been in relationships for decades, living in fear or living in just a constant like, I'm going to do this so I don't have to deal with this person. Living like that's awful.
Yeah.
Really low quality of life. So get the right fit. It's like a job.
Right. 100%. 100%.
It's a give and take.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anyone who, for career, like very driven and also does want to have that family relationship someday, but like you don't want to give that up? Do you have any advice that maybe, would have helped you when you were in law school or anything like that?
Well, when you're in law school, you don't really ask your employer, especially one that is primarily going to be a male-dominated industry, what's maternity leave look like?
Yeah. Right.
And family was kind of very far off in this like tangent, this like cloud world. And so, I didn't realize how much it matters to have an employer if you want a family. And that is not for everyone, right?
Right.
I know plenty of my friends who don't have kids. I'm so happy about it. Not an issue. If you want to join the baby cult, please do.
Baby cult. I love that.
It's great. Drink the Kool-Aid, but if that's not your vibe, and Kool-Aid's
The
not
apple
your
juice.
fine. But if you're not about the baby cult, I get it. But I have an employee. It was kind of weird because I started off at a firm that my partner didn't have kids, and it was just something that she wasn't interested in, and that's fine. And I'm happy that was her choice, and I think she was happy with that decision. But if that's something you want, I ended up moving to a firm where my partner had kids, and she was very much part of her family, and it was a unit, and so she got it. And it was weird because when I got pregnant, I was like, I'm gonna only be out for 2 weeks. And she was like, you are nuts, Brittany. It's not a thing. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be a thing, and I'm not really gonna be out, and she was right.
Yeah.
And she got it. So working for people with families is so key. And at my firm, we have a lot of folks with families, and that is key too. And I don't think women leadership is like the end all be all for every problem to be fixed, but we have a managing partner out of all of our offices, whether that be Springfield, Chicago, Kansas City, and St. Louis. We just nominated our first female one in 2023.
That is so awesome.
And it's amazing. We have a maternity and a maternity policy at Evans Dixon. And even though I did come back to the office when my baby was 3 weeks old, and I was like losing my mind, and not everyone's like that, and that's fine. But Karen, my boss, was holding little Robbie as she's arguing a mediation on the phone.
That's awesome. That's a good boss.
You know what I mean? She's
Yeah.
like, it's just Brittany's baby. Continue. That's life.
Yeah.
You have to find a place where you fit, and it may not be the most money, or it may not be the most fanciest office, but if you can live your life healthy and happy, I think that's the biggest thing. So try to find a place where they're your people, and that may not always be that it is, but it might just be a right here job. But if you're wanting a career, like a place to call home, and that's the thing with lawyers is, you are sometimes with equity partnership and things like that, you're tied to that place forever. And so, it very much depends on who you're going to practice law with, who's going to be in your corner. And so I've always found that if you can answer those questions, and you spend more time with the people you work with, oftentimes being family.
Yeah.
So it's choosing the right time, the right place.
That's right. That's so good. So we're going to be closing up here soon, but another question I wanted to ask is, being a female lawyer in a male-dominated industry, do you have any advice for other females, or like things that have helped you, stand your ground and be confident and strong?
Yeah, it's lots of different things. I've been called all the names in the book, and I used to keep a list behind my desk.
Tally mark every time.
Word. I got called a Nazi one time.
Oh my gosh.
But the list just got too long, so it didn't make it over to the move. But it used to be quite a long list.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think happens a lot of times too, and it just happened to me the other day. An attorney accused me of being, quote, too emotional.
Oh,
I was
my
like,
gosh.
oh, you'll know when I'm too emotional.
You need to chill out.
Yeah. But being a female, yes, for better or for worse, you stand out, right? But I think it can also be such a benefit because you have a perspective that not a lot of folks have. So when I have clients that are sexual abuse survivors, or domestic violence, or stalking, oftentimes they may have hired a male attorney, but when the female attorney looks at it, they're like, whoa, this is a concern X, Y, Z. And, you have that different perspective. Your Honor, this person showed up not only at this event, but they stayed in the back so they could observe my client.
Yeah.
And then the male attorney goes, well, that's where I told them to stand because I thought they wouldn't want to see him. I was like, no, something that is a stalker would enjoy, you know.
Yeah.
But as a female, I would know that would bother me because we don't have, you know, I like to know where my scare place is. I like to see them so I can at least get out of the way.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was just interesting. And you also understand too, like there's a lot of dynamics involved, especially with employment and sexual things that happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And so a male may look at something in a way like a piece of document, like, you know, I hope you have a good night, cowgirl, or should I say reverse cowgirl?
Winky face, exclamation point.
And that's, you know.
And you're like, good night.
Do I even respond to this?
Oh, yeah.
Or the message being late at night. Something, you know, and maybe it's my age or whatever, but I think being a female gives you power, and I don't ever think of it as a hindrance. And sometimes, you know, I had one time an attorney, this was like maybe a month or two in my practice, and he came into a deposition, and he goes, Brittany, you know, I forgot my pen and paper. Will you go get me it? And so I looked at him, and I had our office phone in the center of the deposition room, and I called my secretary, and I go, Mr. X came vastly unprepared today, and he's going to need a pen and paper. You go get that for him. And I looked at him, and I'm like, I'm not your secretary.
Yeah.
I'm your colleague, and I'm not going to take notes for you. And, you know, and it also is kind of funny, too, because bailiffs will ask you, you know, are you an attorney? And you're like, I'm in a suit.
Yeah.
I'm in my laptop.
Yeah.
And you know, because I have...
Yeah. The stilettos on.
I could be more.
I don't know, man. I think I'm just here for the vibe.
I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, do you have your bar card, which is, you know, your identification as an attorney? I was like, yeah.
When they're not asking anyone else, probably their bar card.
Yeah. And they ask you to get it out, and you know, I comply, but you know, they probably have never seen someone like me before, and that's why they're confused. And that's fine. I'm going to educate you that I am an attorney and this is normal, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me. But, you know, if you're going to be a jerk about it or whatever, I'll get you right back.
Yeah, which is why you're such an amazing attorney. Because, you know, especially in that example with like pen and paper, like there's a nonverbal control where it's like, yeah, you're in here, but you're going to be like a lower class compared to the other guys in here. And so for you to be like, you know, it just puts someone back in their place and being like, no, I'm here on merit. So goodbye.
And sometimes it is truly just absolute confusion. They're
like,
this is not normal. You're not normal, you know? So, you know, it's like, are you the court reporter or the secretary? Why are you here? I'm not the lawyer. No. He's okay. But
I love that your attitude about it, though. You know, at least you don't take it so like personal.
It doesn't hurt my feelings, because you know the next time they won't do that,
right?
And they'll be like, okay, this is normal, and you know most of the time they're kind of like, wow, this is a cat in high heels. Oh my gosh, or you know, this is like a dog walking on two legs. Like, you know, it's kind of unique and different. So yes, it can be kind of like, okay, I'm playing in an old boys game, and the judge may be talking to the other attorney, you know, all about his golf game, and will not even acknowledge me. But I will say times are changing.
Yeah.
And that is not the same ball game as it was 5 years ago, and it's continually changing. And I am here for it.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for it, and all the advice I can give to girls is just show up, be you.
Yeah.
Wear the pink shoes if you want to.
Pop off. Yeah.
And if you're too emotional, show them what true emotion is, because that's how you learn your case.
That's right. Oh my gosh. I have chills. But seriously, and you're paving the way for so many more like generations of women to come, where who knows, maybe in like 15 years, there's not going to be a question of like why you're in this courtroom, you know? Probably asking the guy, let me see your bar card.
Sir.
Yeah. Are you supposed to be here right now?
Totally. And I've had such great examples as my bosses. I mean, I have only had the luxury of having women bosses, and each and every one of them throughout my career have been absolute rock stars. And so, you know, watching them be amazing makes me want to be just as amazing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if I'm any groundbreaker, but those are like, my boss told me she was straight up asked if she was intending on being a mother at an interview, which is very illegal, and even was illegal when she was being interviewed.
Wow.
And, you know, she would never ask that, but you know what I mean? Like, those are the people who had to deal with that crap. So that I can at least exist. I may have to show my bar card. But I'm not asking if I'm going to be ovulating soon.
That's like a question. So, like,
what's your ovulation schedule? You plan on
Yeah.
being a mother?
Ovulate and chill. Like,
You're not going to need that maternity leave, are you?
we'll just take that out of your contract. And like, that's so wild. I can't even fathom that.
I know.
Wow.
And that's, you know, and I don't have that obviously, but our firm embraces parenthood, but you know, it's just a different time, and you know, I couldn't do what I do without them, and those people are the true VAs, right?
Wow, you're all amazing. Well, thank you, Brittany, so much for coming here on the pod and just sharing so much like wisdom and advice, and honestly, like being an inspiration to me and to like so many other people. So as I like to close every show, you know what I do on Keeping Up with Cass. We ask our 3 main questions. So what is your favorite song?
Okay, so I love Mac Miller.
I do too. Yes.
Mac Miller fan.
May he rest in
So
peace.
God, yes. And so I love the Weeknd song. That
I love that song.
It's I Am. I love it. So big Mac Miller. Anything he makes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good. Favorite quote?
So work hard and don't let anyone push you around.
That's so good. Yeah.
Not a single person.
Amen. Rock on. And what do you want your legacy to be?
You know, I guess I want to do good. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's great to be a great lawyer. It's an even better accomplishment to do good.
Yeah. That's so awesome. You guys, Brittany is a queen. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Of
You're
course.
amazing.
This is an example of if you see someone cool in real life, introduce yourself. You never know what can happen. But also, you know, the work she is doing with Harmony House and having those surveillance cameras is huge. So again, if you know, are worried about something in your life, if you have a fear of privacy, it's okay to reach out to someone and like figure out your options.
Absolutely. And if you are experiencing that, you know, there are resources. Call me, call Sarah, call any attorney, let us advocate, or take a call. You know, I'd rather you call me and survive.
Yeah. You know, protect yourself and, you know, be very aware of what you're posting on the internet or like, you know, even what you tell people, strangers, about your details of your life,
where you work.
Yeah.
So, well, awesome. Thank you for
Appreciate
having
it.
me.
Of course. And to my listeners, you know, as spring is approaching soon, I just hope that you continue to, you know, put your mental health on your priority list. We hopefully have merch on the way. You know, I've just kind of been chilling. The next solo pod is going to be very, very wild. So be sure to tune in. All right. Love you guys. Bye.